It's 1987. I'm an up-and-coming yuppie. I'm gonna be honest, I feel like hot shit. I'm in my BMW 325 IS. And I'm in the standard of all sports sedans. Even got this nice red leather interior. To be honest, I feel pretty good about myself. Right up until I get blitzed by a BMW M5. So let's say you're some sort of high-power business human being in the mid-1980s and you're going to buy yourself an M5. What does that entail? Well, first of all, you're going to be spending a fabulous amount of money. A regular base 5 Series would have been something like $28,000. A pretty high-level sporty one would have been like $35,000. This one, 46 grand. And if you look at it, it looks almost exactly like a regular 5 Series. There's actually only one unique body panel on this thing. And that's just the front air dam. And this is really what makes the M5 what it is. So BMW made the bodies for these things in its regular factory, but then they were shipped to BMW Motorsports, where they were built by hand. And what they did was they put this into the car. This is a BMW S38 engine, and it's basically a detuned version of their racing motor. It's a 3.5 liter straight six, twin overhead cam, 24 valves, but what really makes it is that classic BMW signature, which is individual throttle body. So where a regular engine sort of breathes through one sort of big nostril, this has an individual sort of intake trumpet for each cylinder and a little throttle body for them. So not only does that give more power, but also much better response. American cars made a claimed 256 horsepower at a pretty lofty 6,500 RPM and 240 odd pound-feet of torque. Now this car weighs only like 3,100 pounds, and the specs don't seem that crazy. Maybe like a regular sports sedan of the day would have been making high 100 horsepower, but even still, this was good enough for a top speed of just under 150 miles an hour. I think it was claimed at 148, which made it the fastest sedan in the world at the time. There's a claimed 0 to 60 time of like 6.5 seconds, but I don't totally believe it. So I think maybe that's something we should test ourselves. All right, let's give a 0 to 60 time a go. See what kind of car we're dealing with. And we are there. 7.5. All right. I think if I was randomly driving somewhere and I had to do 0 to 60, that's probably as fast as I would go. So to understand the M5, you have to know its history. And for that, you have to go back to the origin of BMW M. And that actually traces its roots back to Ford. You see, in the early 1970s, BMW was racing its top-of-the-line coupe, and it was getting very embarrassed by a much more pedestrian set of Ford Capris, run by a man named Jochen Nerpasch. So BMW did what any sensible company would do, poach Nerpasch, almost in secret. He set up his own team called BMW Motorsport and started doing what he did at Ford, which was bend the rules every way he could and start winning races. BMW wanted to be racing at the top level, and for that it needed a mid-engine sports car. And so it designed one, the BMW M1, in partnership with Lamborghini of all people. The only problem was, midway through development, Lamborghini went broke. So BMW had to recoup all their stuff from the Lamborghini project, figure out how to make this car themselves. And by the time it was actually in production, it was too late for it to go racing. The rules had changed. Now, Nerpasch had another little program going at BMW M at that time to sort of recoup money for its racing program. Racing isn't cheap. One thing he would do is he would build bigger engines and stick them into tuned up road cars, sell them to rich people, help balance his books. So what he did after the M1 program was he did the natural thing and took the engine out of that car and stuck it in a regular 5 Series. And at that point, we have born the BMW M5, the very first one. Everyone understands it as an important car, but as for a good car, certainly in today's standard, that's sort of a bit of an open question. To better understand what the M5 was like at the time,
we lined up another standard sports sedan, an 87 BMW E30 325 IS. As for a little bit of specs, the E30 is making around 168 horsepower, and the M5 is around 256, close to what you'd get in a Ferrari at that time.
Oh, that is a long brake pedal. This is an 87 325 IS. This is the sporty one. Rev's really nice, actually. This is a very pleasant car to drive. It only weighs like 25 or 2,600 pounds. Goes sideways very easily, actually. This is a very progressive car. Anyone who has driven an E30 will tell you it's a kind of weird sense that it feels both very old at times and also very modern. There's so much squeal in the tire that it's like you just know that if you really it's very easy to start getting it sideways. Because you just know what's coming up. It's just pretty simple. But as someone who is familiar with a more sort of like well-tuned sporty car, this is very soft. Well, fun.
The E30 was good. A little loose, but sporty for the time. If you were some mid-level exec, it'd be fine. You'd think you'd had it all. But that's why you're only mid-level. Now, if you were a big shot tycoon with a heavy foot, well, let's see what the M5 got you.
It's such a trip to drive this thing because, one, they're just so rare, but also these things look so normal. They look so much like any other 5 Series. God, this thing's got push. It just fucking goes. When I was growing up, a young little car spotter, I'd check every E28 to make sure it was real. See if it was a real M5. And every E28 had this little bit of possibility that it could be one of the real ones. If you're wondering what it's like to drive this thing, it is reasonably physical. But it's also pretty responsive. The engine is super good. It's funny, it's like, even though this is a small car by today's standards, it's a little power slide in a original M5, no big deal. It feels like a bigger car. Straight 6, running through individual throttle bodies. That's why it sounds so good. That intake noise. And this is just, first of all, it's a car that encourages you just to drive it hard and not feel scared to actually get some slide going. Oversteer feels like something which is happening, you know, over there, but something which is so easily controlled underfoot. Oh, so satisfying. Entertaining to drive a car that's big shit with no assist. Oh, just the car pushing and knowing that if you lay into it more, it'll start to slide. But also knowing that there is nothing helping you out. There is no computer-controlled driver, car stability. It's just you and a box and one of the best engines ever made. God, this puts a smile on your face. That is for damn sure. Okay, so having driven both of these cars, and they're both very desirable cars. I mean, that E30 is like the classic 80s sports sedan. I mean, it's good. It's a very, very good car. Drives amazing, super fun, practical, enjoyable. But this is the fucking shit, man. This car absolutely just is so much better. Not just that it's more powerful, not just that this was the fastest sedan in the world at the time. It's so good. I get it. It is the first car to be called an M5, but it really is the first one that nailed this sort of formula of being a comfortable car, a luxurious car, but also a really good handling car, and one with an amazing, amazing engine. Oh, it's a legend. It's the original M5. Oh, good God.